try it now. So. Are we introducing them to or just an intro? And what are we saying? Just the highlights? Yes. Ameet. I think Ameet is going first. Mm. Senior man. Ameet is senior. All right, everyone, we're going to start our final speaker session for the day, if I can get everyone's attention. Today, we will have Dr. Ameet Sengar, who is the Senior Manager of Scientific Strategy in the Research Institute, and Dr. Michael Salter, who's a Senior Scientist in the Neuroscience and Mental Health Program, and Professor in Department of Physiology and Chief of Research Emeritus. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming them.
Thanks for that intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome to SickKids. I guess today I hear is day one for you. Are some of you already at SickKids, students at SickKids? Like how many? Just so I have an idea. Nobody. Oh, excellent. Well, yeah, I know you're okay. Well, then definitely welcome. Yeah, so my name is Ameet, and it's my pleasure to give you a little bit of a background of about who we are, what we do, a little bit of our culture, a little bit of the lay of the land of what goes on here in terms of research. Um, so research at SickKids spans basically the entire campus, right? So you're probably already familiar. We have a very large hospital to the west of us, and actually, there's a ton of research activity that goes on inside the hospital. It's not just focused only on clinical care. That's basically the central location for clinical research. And then we have a new tower next door to us called the Patient Support Center. That's where mostly our clinical researchers as well as their teams. That's where their workspaces are. That's where they analyze all their data. That's where they sort of think about research and their patients. And then this building here, the PGCRL, which I'll touch on a little bit more detail in the upcoming slides, is really where all the wet bench labs exist, as well as dry lab research areas exist here. And then this building as well is where our 7 research programs are centrally located, so that you see here in this the mouse. Yeah, so in this, okay, let me get that pointer. Oh, yeah, see that. So 7 research programs, and the staff that work in the research programs, a lot of them have cross appointments with their clinical divisions. We also have organ and disease centers that help fund a lot of research activities, and they themselves also perform a lot of research themselves. We have our core facilities, which basically help drive our innovation that kind of goes on here. And of course, we have almost exclusively strong affiliation with the University of Toronto. That's where our graduate students sort of come from there. If you've been walking around, I don't know if you've had much chance to kind of walk around here a little bit, but one of our key visions that's going on here at the hospital is what we call precision child health. You would have seen some digital displays and other types of banners and stuff around. So just to touch on this very lightly, it's the vision is really about integrating data and all kinds of data. So whether it's you think about genomics, protein function, phenomics, things like that, or whether you're thinking about actual clinical data, so the blood work and the X-rays and some of the data coming from there, even extending out to social data. So what's going on in the environment, what's going on locally, sort of where the patient has grown up, or where they are currently living, and integrating all of this data all together to really develop an understanding of um, what has happened with the child. So where did the child come from? How did they grow? How did they develop? When did the disease manifest? What is the makeup and mechanism behind the disease? All of these things are basically centered around data and data integration. And so the idea is that to sort of fuel the next generation or next sort of level of discovery, we need to really develop novel precision approaches to predicting, preventing, diagnosing, and then ultimately treating the disease. And precision in this context really means at the individual level, right? Not really looking at population or groups of people all together and aggregating data, but really trying to understand what is happening at the individual and what does that one individual sort of need. Um, and so at the RI, we have mission statements, and you can kind of read them here. I won't read them out to you, but these statements are basically centered around this idea, right, that all current medicine at SickKids is based on previous and ongoing research. I would actually go so far as you can extend that it's not just a SickKids thing, right? Basically, all hospitals to develop a solution for someone, it has to be based on knowledge that we already have that can be understood and analyzed, but also new knowledge that is ongoing. So, what questions have come up from your investigations, and what are you doing to develop additional knowledge? And only once we have a sufficient amount of that built up and that sort of at our disposal can we actually move forward and actually solve what we're trying to solve. And my understanding with BrainHack, so you're all mostly computer coders and that sort of, so this sort of hopefully really speaks to you, really kind of integrating a bunch of different sources of data to develop new understanding. Who does this work and how do we do it? So there's a little breakdown here, kind of on the left of the makeup of our research sort of teams. So obviously have scientists, we have physicians, we have clinicians and other allied health members who are part of project and team investigators. And then since we're all trainees, I want to highlight trainees. We have a very strong ecosystem of training here. We are a teaching hospital. So we have lots of undergraduate students, lots and lots of graduate students, and postdoctoral fellows as well. I'll be honest, these are the drivers of a lot of the research that goes on here. You're working all day and all night and all weekends, hopefully, and you're driving research and making a difference. Um, we are Canada's number one hospital in terms of research intensity. And what I mean by research intensity is the amount of money and investment and resources we pour into research. No one sort of outperforms us in that category in the country. And it does, and you'll see like it does show in terms of our accomplishments. SickKids is ranked number two amongst pediatric hospitals. So if we're just focusing only on the pediatric side of it, right behind Boston Children's Hospital. So where do we get this funding and resources? Where does this all come from? So our main sort of funding agency is CIHR, which is not going to surprise most of you, I think. And then, but we do have a diverse array of funders, American funders, European funders, and altogether almost 200 different agencies help our scientists and our physicians perform research here. And I just want to highlight these two bubbles here on the bottom right. So around 100, this is last year's slide, so around 100 of our trainees had their research projects funded. So that's either through a stipend or a fellowship award or through other types of bursaries that help pay for some research projects to a tune of almost $6 million. Right. So, our trainees are actually, very providing very significant amount of contribution monetarily, as well as all of their time and effort into sort of promoting research here. Um, with our research, we're able, and our sort of expertise, we're able to collaborate with a lot of top children's hospitals around the world, as I already mentioned, like Harvard, right? Our Boston Children's is our number one sort of collaborator, almost to the tune of 30% of our international collaborations are just within the Boston area. But all the other top children's hospitals on the planet are integral to our research, whether in Philadelphia or Gauche in London or Cincinnati Children's. So back to the building. So research, remember, research goes on everywhere on the campus here. But the central location of where research programs sort of exist is in this building, PGCRL. And so we're on the third floor today. And above us are the seven programs. Neuroscience and mental health, for example, is the first program immediately above where we are. And the programs span about 2 to 3 floors each. However, even though the programs have very specific sort of names and focus, the reality is that something like neuroscience or brain health actually spans across all the research programs because the programs are not necessarily organ based. And so, we did a quick analysis last year, and actually, 1 in 5 of our researchers here at SickKids is involved in neuroscience and/or brain health in some capacity. So it's a very like neuroscience and brain research is a very significant part of what we do here. And you can see that in sort of a topic analysis. So brain cancer, so gliomas, for example, or neuroblastoma here on the right, are basically amongst our top research topic areas. But you also see, autism spectrum, Rett syndrome, neonatal brain injury, epilepsy, all exist sort of in our top fields of area scope of research. And this is my last slide today. I just wanted to give a little bit of a plug. The hospital started in 1875, so this is the 150th birthday year. So if you're walking around and you see those blue balloons, we have a bunch of sort of displays around. So that's what that's about. That's basically decided to have a year-long celebration. The Research Institute itself actually started quite a bit later, 1951. So it turns 75 next year. So we'll basically have, I think, back-to-back birthday parties here. And this was Jack Bickle Foundation that helped us kickstart it all. And on the slides highlights basically all of our sort of most proud sort of moments and breakthroughs that we've had here. And you'll see actually neuroscience and brain research are a significant part of our major accomplishments, right? So first brain cancer stem cell was isolated here. We've got, a number of autism genes identified, medulloblastoma, another brain cancer genes identified here. We've got engrams that were linked to memory traces was established here. And then more recently, the Gary Hurwitz Foundation provided a significant donation to establishing our mental health center. And so that is very successful in moving forward. It's sort of in the mental health arena, which is going to be a place we want to make a big mark. So that's it. So that sort of gives you sort of a feel of where you are sort of physically in the space, how this building sort of fits in the ecosystem and culture around SickKids, and kind of what we like to do and what we keeps us busy. Um, so thank you very much for listening. And if I don't know, do people have questions or we can also talk later, I guess. Oh, yep, question, yep. So, so I would say definitely, but I wouldn't be able to share a specific example. But certainly, so here, the philosophy is to really study development, right? And so for a lot of, especially neurological disorders, that start from birth are developmental disorders. And so understanding the the changes that happen through disease progression through the time is a real kind of key component of understanding ultimately what the impact is on that person's quality of life and sort of life being. And so, we have collaborations across, like we don't just collaborate with children's hospitals, even though I sort of mostly focused on that. Our collaborations extend to UHN and CAMH and basically all the adult hospitals as well. And so our data is shared with everybody. And so whatever understandings we develop and discover here are immediately useful and beneficial to continued research in sort of the adult hospital spaces. Right? Great. Thanks for listening. Yeah.
Presentation off. I'll try to just, oops, escape. 2, 3, 4. Okay. I just close this. Okay. And I'm going to close that. And I'm going to delete that. Because I'm going
Please welcome me, everyone, for to thank Dr. Sangar and Dr. Salter for the wonderful and inspiring talk and for taking us through the landscape of infrastructure of research here at SickKids. Truly, it was inspiring, and I hope that inspired you not to run away and come back on Thursday here, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much.